Welcome to Claremore, Oklahoma. I stayed here in the Will Rogers Inn last night, and we're going to go visit the Will Rogers Museum. And the inn here, it's a nice establishment. I guess you'd call it good value. So it's not a high dollar hotel, but it's not bad for the price. But yeah, let's head down to Claremore and then over to the museum. In the early 1800s, this area was settled by the Osage Nation. A Chief Claremont established an early community here. In 1830, after passage of the Indian Removal Act, the region became part of the Indian Territory and was signed to Cherokee Nation. In 1874, a post office was established. In 1882, the town's name officially changed from Claremont to Claremore due to a clerical spelling error that became permanent. In the early 1900s, sulfur springs were discovered and attracted tourists seeking health cures and bathhouses. In 1903, Claremore was incorporated within the Cherokee Nation. Oklahoma became a state in 1907, and Rogers County was formed, named after Clem Rogers, who was Will Rogers' father. Claremore is also the setting for the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, Oklahoma. When you look at the population figures, you can see how it has gone up throughout the years. Peaking is the last census here at almost 20,000 people. And here we are at the Will Rogers Memorial Museum. It's a 19,000 square foot museum here in Claremore that memorializes entertainer Will Rogers. Rogers was born in a town nearby called Oologah, and we're going to go there after the museum. That's where his father had settled. This museum opened up in 1938, 3 years after he died. Admission is $10. Pretty interesting museum. I didn't know too much about Will Rogers, but this little map, you can click on any state and it will tell you his connection to any state there is. So he had quite the reach. So Rogers was kind of a worldwide phenomenon, and he was a humorist, he was a actor, and just kind of a well-known Western figure, and wasn't just one type of entertainer, but he was certainly entertaining for a lot of people and is very well known in this part of Oklahoma. A lot of Route 66 is named the Will Rogers Highway, and so definitely a lot of people were influenced by him. Right there at that statue, if you go outside, you can go out to where his tomb is. Kind of a blustery day out here today, but they have a nice area here. I'm sure it looks a lot better in the summer, but that's where he's interred with his wife, and there's several other of his family members are interred there as well. So Clem Rogers, that was Will Rogers' father. And like I mentioned earlier, that's what Rogers County here is named after. And he had quite a life as well. Fascinating guy to learn about. I didn't know anything about him. And besides being a rancher, he had a lot of influence. He was an early politician in the area. Very complicated region because of all the Native American history. And Oklahoma wasn't a state yet. And so there was different people that were trying to work together to help Native Americans, and he was one of them. And it was certainly a changing landscape in the United States, and especially that part of Oklahoma. And then obviously he was Will's father, so that was another big part of his life.
Clem's parents moved from the Cherokee Nation to Arkansas, settled into the Northern Snake District, Indian Territory, becoming Adair County. But his father was killed a few years later. His mother built the foundation of the Rogers Ranch, creating a strong legacy for his son Will and the Cherokee Nation. Clem's parents moved from the Cherokee Nation to Arkansas and settled into the Northern Snake District, Indian Territory, in 1835. Clem was born on January 11, 1839, in what would become Adair County, but his father was killed a few years later.
This was a cool little theater room. They have a bigger theater in the museum here, but they had a bunch of his posters and of his movies that he was in. This felt more like a man cave almost. And they had a movie playing, so you could hang out and watch a Will Rogers movie in here.
All right, I'll take the gamble. That's your spirit. Now then, do you...
Then they had other parts of the museum. This was modeled to look like his study. It's a very well done museum. I wasn't expecting a whole lot. I didn't know what to expect, but it's a very nice museum. Lots of great artwork. There's little murals and all the different posters. So many movies and shows that he was a part of. Pretty remarkable when you put it all together in one area. I really liked this part. This is a whole bunch of different miniature scenes of Will Rogers' life. So that's the Boyhood Ranch, which I think we're going to see a little bit later on here. And then school days for Ropin' Willie. So there's what a school looked like, and a scene there outside the school. So just a whole bunch of different scenes. There's old Claremore, Oklahoma. Obviously, I love an old downtown, so that's pretty cool to see. But this was kind of fun. And, you might think it's almost for kids or something like that, but I really enjoyed checking out all these scenes. And there's the final scene. Rogers died in a plane crash in Alaska, and they have a whole room dedicated to that as well, but a complete history of his life there in miniatures. And this is outside the larger theater. They actually have movies in here, I think every week, maybe, for the public. And here, while the museum's open, you can go in. And over here at the right side, they got the ticket booth. You can pick something to watch and then hang out and watch it.
Once there was a time when nothing big could happen in America without Will Rogers being summoned to the scene to make it official. Bands might play, flags fly, orders sound off, but it wasn't really an event unless Will showed up and made a joke about it. Will Rogers wasn't billed as the star of that show, but they sure brought out the man who was.
This stadium was dedicated to art, sports, and any useful.
Gotta love the old movie posters. They just don't make them like that anymore.
This is tricky. For slow motion, he wanted to make sure he caught the goat right in front of the camera.
From the state capitol, where Oklahoma paid his
And this is the room where they talk about the final journey of Will Rogers and his death in 1935. He was in Alaska and flying around with a friend of his, and they weren't up there really doing any kind of entertaining, but they were just kind of up there exploring. And unfortunately, plane crash. Wiley Post was the pilot, and Will was the passenger, and they had been flying around for a while up there, just kind of exploring Alaska.
Two white men may be dead. He did not know who the parties were, nor did we suspect who the victims of the crash might be, because this crash occurred southwest of Point Barrow. Long experienced aeronauts seek to hit the coast about 100 miles southeast of Point Barrow. And they wandered up and down the coast. The planes lost 200 miles east of Point Barrow.
And starting there on Wednesday, August 7th, you can see kind of gives a daily little diary of everything they did each day until that final day on August 15th, 1935. On a lighter note, just at the outside of that room, you can go down the hall and down the steps. They have a kind of children's wing of the museum that's pretty interesting. Lots of different murals and paintings and things that kids would enjoy. And I'm sure there's been a lot of kids spend hours down here being entertained and entertaining others. So they've done a nice job down here with this children's section of the museum. And then our final part here just talks about all the different celebrities that Will Rogers made films with or knew. So really interesting and great museum. This is the small town of Oologah, and this is more close to where Will Rogers was from. Claremore kind of claims Will Rogers, but this is the town basically that was his home. And small town, 1,305, so you know the bigger city kind of gets the recognition that has the museum and everything like that too. But Oologah means dark cloud. Is a Cherokee chief named Chief Oologah. That's who they named this after, and it was started in the 1880s as a railroad town. They have a couple little things here just off the downtown area, which they do have a nice little downtown, kind of signifying where he was born, which is actually 2 miles from here. They have a miniature replica of his home that he lived in, just to the left of this display. Born in Oologah and died in Point Barrow, Alaska, but that's his house, and we're gonna go check that out next. It looks like the birthplace of Will Rogers is closed for construction, so I guess a good excuse to come back another day. But pretty fascinating to check out that museum. That was a really well done museum. You know, Claremore is not the biggest city, about 20,000 people, so nice that they take so much pride in it. And obviously Will Rogers was such an influential person in entertainment in the early 1900s. So I really enjoyed the museum. Very cool. Claremore has some neat historic towns and history. And I'll give you a little view here with the drone. Fortunately, we can kind of get a sneak peek over there. Beautiful area of where Will Rogers was born.